Overkill's 2019 album Wings of War is their 19th studio album, which is pretty dang impressive. I would assume this has to be a record for at least for a thrash metal band, if not for a metal band in general. I haven't done the research on that one. I've talked about Overkill twice on this channel already, so I don't really feel like I need to summarize who they are or where they come from. You can either watch my reviews for the two previous albums or look it up yourself. Overkill definitely have their own sound and style that's unique to them, especially on their last several albums. If you've heard everything from the Electric Age onward, you already know what this album is going to sound like. Another aspect of the band that's on display is their attitude. They don't give a fuck. They've come to put out a solid thrash metal album and they're not worried about anything else. And they're going to do it better than most other bands. And to anybody who wants to complain that, oh, they release the same songs over and over again, oh, they don't grow, they don't change, like a few comments that I've seen on the videos of their songs from this album on YouTube, or like I'm about to do here in a few minutes, I'm sure the band would say, you can just have a nice cold glass of go fuck yourself, because they don't care. The production on this album is pretty solid, as I would expect from an Overkill album, or you should really expect from any album these days. The musicianship is fine, although I think it's a bit repetitive. The drumming is pretty good, and there are actually a few decent solos on here. The vocals are pretty solid as always, with Bobby's own unique style, but the songwriting is a bit inconsistent for my taste. Sometimes I have mixed feelings on this band. On one hand, I really respect them. I really respect the fact that they release so many albums, and they are all of fairly decent quality, except maybe a few of the albums from the 90s. But besides that, typically they release solid albums. But on the other hand, while I can respect them wanting to give their fans what they want, solid thrash albums, there's really no growth or variety in their music. They have several songs that sound exactly the same. And I feel like you can stay a thrash metal band and still do something different and throw some different guitar riffs, some different vocal styles, some different drum beats to mix things up. And they don't really do that very often. That's why I liked that song, Let's All Go to Hades, off their last album. It had a different melody to it. It seemed like something unique for the band, which is why that was one of the standout tracks from that album for me. This album is no exception. There are a few songs where they do try a few new things, which I'll talk about, but for the most part, you're getting a lot of the same type songs over and over again. Although I didn't notice a song that had the same style as the song What I'm Missing from their 2000 album Bloodletting. So that's a nice change. Usually at least one song on each of their albums sounds just like that song. I think the Electric Age had two songs like that. The album starts off really well with 3 killer tracks. The album opens with Last Man Standing, which is a typical Overkill opener, especially for the last several albums. It starts with an electronic intro that leads into a typical Overkill fast-paced thrasher. It's got a good chorus. It's a pretty solid track if you like that sort of thing. Something in the vein of Electric Rattlesnake. It is a really good song. It's just something that I've heard before, but I still like it a lot. Believe in the Fight is also a fast-paced song, but it's different from the first track. I really like the guitar riff in the verse, and the chorus is one of my favorite choruses on the album. It's also got a cool riff towards the end of the song where the song kind of slows down a little bit, but when I say slows down, I mean it's still up-tempo. Head of a Pin starts off with a really slow intro that builds to another fast-paced song, but yet, again, this song is fast-paced but in a different way. The guitar riff in the verse is really enjoyable, but I think that's more because it reminds me a lot of Black Sabbath's Children of the Grave. The chorus for the song is a lot slower, and it does break things up a little bit. So after 3 really good songs, unfortunately the album dips in quality for me anyways. Batshit Crazy is another fast-paced song. The drums at first were making me think of Metallica's Kill 'Em All album, but the more I listened to the song, the more I was thinking of the song Metallica covered on Garage Days, the song Helpless. Kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Some of the guitar riffs do remind me a little bit of Kill 'Em All or Metallica. This song just didn't really go anywhere for me. I really like the interlude. It's a quieter section that reminds me of something that might be in the middle of a song on Metallica's Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, or even Injustice for All era. Basically, this song reminds me a lot of Metallica. That isn't a bad thing. Unfortunately, the song just doesn't do anything for me. Distortion has a really cool melodic intro. It's got a clean guitar riff and some lead guitar being played over it that has a cool effect on it. This leads into a heavier but slower paced song with a little bit of a groove to it. I really like some of the drumming in this track. Unfortunately, the song itself doesn't really go anywhere beyond this song's vastly different pace compared to the rest of the songs on the album. A Mother's Prayer returns to the fast paced, thrashy insanity that is Overkill. It's a pretty good song, but it reminds me a little bit too much of Believe in the Fight. I really like the guitar solo, it's the best solo on the album. Garden State is a very fast paced song, very heavy, and very cheesy. It kind of reminds me a little bit of punk. This one just doesn't really do it for me. I can see why some people would like it. It could be considered kind of fun, but for me, I just couldn't get into it. Where Few Dare to Walk is probably the most unique song on the album. It starts with a melodic, clean guitar intro, which is really cool. Once the song gets going, the song rotates between a softer section and a section that I'll say is heavier, but it's not as heavy as any of the other songs on the album. It's not really soft, but it's not really heavy either, if that makes any sense. This song's alright. It took a little bit for it to grow on me, but it's not a bad track. The song also has my second favorite solo on the album. Out on the Roadkill is just another fast paced thrasher. This one didn't really do a whole lot for me. It's not awful, but it's not something I really want to come back to. Hole in My Soul is the last song on the album. This one's a little better. I do like this song, but again, it's another typical fast paced thrasher. There's not really a whole lot to it. The chorus is pretty good, but other than that, there's nothing really special about it. So at the end of the day, we've got another solid Overkill album. There are a few songs that I'm not really into, but there's a decent amount of songs that I like enough. But really, the standouts for me are the first three songs. So I'm going to give this album a 6.5 out of 10. It's a decent album, but there are a few songs that I don't really care for all that much. And even with the songs that I do like, there's a lot of I've heard this before in those songs. It's still a decent album. If you are an Overkill fan, you should definitely give it a listen. But for me, I'll probably just stick with the 6 songs that I like.